Average prices of gasoline and diesel continued an upward trend last week as global oil prices soared amid prolonged tensions in the Middle East.
네, 첫 번째 헤드라인인데요. 중동 지역 긴장 장기화로 국제유가가 상승함에 따라 지난주 국내 휘발유와 경유의 평균 가격이 오름세를 이어갔습니다.
You know, if you're a regular driver, you know,
Oh.
you've noticed that prices at the pump,
Yep.
they were going down just a little bit earlier this
were,
year.
yeah.
They, you know, close to where I live, they had gone almost down back to the 1,500 won per liter range, but it never got there, and it's going back up again.
It is going back up.
So if you look at the details, in detail, the numbers, the price of gas last week rose about 26 won per liter to 1,673.3 won, as well as diesel prices as well, up 11 won to about 1,551. So I know for a time a lot of people were buying diesel cars because the price of diesel was much lower
Right.
than gasoline, but it looks like they're pretty similar at this point. And
Yeah.
a big reason for that, of course, is the turmoil in the Middle East.
아, 그렇죠. 휘발유 평균 가격이 1리터에 1,673원인데요. 이게 이제 조금씩 올라가고 있는 모습이고요. 경유, 디젤 또 마찬가지로 계속 오르고 있습니다. 현재는 이제 평균 판매 가격이 1리터에 1,551원 정도라고 하는데요. Yeah, by district, it's interesting as well because certain areas it's slightly more expensive than others.
Exactly. You know, I always thought it was interesting because you can go on the internet and find where cheap gas prices are.
Yep.
Those people that drive around to find the cheapest gas station, which I think is a little, you know, you're wasting gas to find cheaper gas, which,
Yeah.
so I just, you know, if you have one place that I go to, I'd usually go to, but it's not just the Middle East though. There is some there's a pessimistic outlook forecast from the U.S. that upwardly adjusted the outlook on oil prices, and also the weak won against the U.S. dollar is another reason
that's another reason,
why
yeah.
gas prices are going up. So, you know, for people who have to drive regularly, it's bad news.
Yep.
It's easy to say take public transportation. It's safe. You know, it's energy efficient. But you know, this affects other areas of the economy. So there's always this focus on gas prices.
Oh, absolutely. Well, this inching up of prices isn't temporary. It's actually an upward trend, isn't it?
If something's a trend, like in fashion, it's the prevailing, the tendency or an inclination, a general movement in a
Yeah.
direction. And in this case, it's an upward trend. So when something's going upward, obviously, its trajectory is increasing, as in the quantity or the price of something.
Yes. 궤도라는 뜻의 trajectory를 쓸 수도 있는데요. 계속 이렇게 올라가는 추세다. 오름세, 상승 추세, upward trend.
If something's increasing just in an exponential manner, you could say an upward spiral.
Oh,
too.
yeah. It's getting out of hand.
It's getting out of hand almost.
Yeah.
But those are all synonyms there, right?
Sure. Prolonged tensions, that's one of the reasons in the Middle East, of course.
Yeah, it looks like you know there was news coming out of the Middle East over the weekend again with Iran and Israel, and that's you know making oil prices fluctuate. And if something is prolonged, it's lengthened in time
Yep.
or extend the scope. If something's to prolong is that be prolonged is continuing for a notably long period of time.
연장시키는 것을 prolonging이라고 하는데요. prolonged tensions 그러면은 장기화가 되고 있는 긴장 상태를 그 긴장 사태 중동의 지역에 대해서 지금 얘기를 하는 것이죠. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Average prices of gasoline and diesel continued an upward trend last week as global oil prices soared amid prolonged tensions in the Middle East. Let's move on to the next headline.
Prices of processed foods in the first quarter rose by around 6% from a year earlier, led by cooking oil prices soaring nearly 50%.
네, 국내 가공식품의 올해 1분기 가격이 전년 동기 대비 약 6% 오른 가운데 이 중 식용유가 50% 가까이 급등해 가장 큰 상승률을 기록한 것으로 나타났습니다.
Yeah. Do we have to talk about such bad news?
I
early
know.
Monday, it's really hitting our
It's
pocketbooks,
getting
right?
more expensive to drive, and processed foods are becoming more expensive.
Yes, exactly. You know, it's always interesting to look at, I guess, to look at first what is or what
Yeah.
are processed foods.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
processed foods are any foods that have been altered from
Yeah.
its natural state. So basically, when you walk into a supermarket, anything that's in the middle part of the supermarket, in the
Oh,
aisles, is
right.
processed, aka maybe a little less or less healthy.
But I think the notion that most people have is that processed foods are really bad for you. However, not all processed
Not
foods
all.
are bad for you.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
anything that's been washed,
Yeah.
cleaned,
Yeah.
chopped, things like that. So
Sure.
when I think processed foods, I think like canned meats.
Me too, yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
And frozen foods,
Right.
which I love. Obviously, they say you should shop more towards the outer parts of the supermarket. But if you look at the numbers more in detail,
Yeah.
these numbers come from Q1 of this year.
Yep, the first quarter.
The first quarter, the Korean Consumer Agency surveyed 32 products. 25 food products rose their prices, about 6.1% for all 32, but of those that rose, 9.1%. So that's a significant increase. And the top increase item of prices was cooking oil.
Yeah.
So it'd be things like vegetable oils, canola oils, avocado, sunflower oils, things
Sure.
like that. They rose 50% on year, Sue.
Wow.
You're looking at about almost 1,000 won per 100 milliliters. So it's a pretty significant increase. Other items include sugar, soybean pastes. These are staples in every Korean kitchen.
Absolutely. Korea Consumer Agency KCA는 한국 소비자원인데요. 그 데이터에 따르면은 총 32개의 가공식품을 분석을 해봤더니 25개 품목이 가격이 올랐다라는 것을 알 수 있었고 그중에서 가장 많이 오른 것은 헤드라인에도 들어있는 식용유 가격이고요. 그다음에는 설탕 그리고 된장 역시 우리가 늘상 쓰는 것들이잖아요, 사실은.
If you're wondering what the 7 items that didn't increase
Oh, yeah.
are, they include things like fish cakes, omuk, I think, soju, canned tuna, soy sauce, and flour,
Oh.
which sounds like my, college days. That's what I ate
combination of
every
these
day.
things.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a good night right there. Omuk and soju and
Yeah,
canned tuna.
exactly.
Yeah.
네, 지금 방금 얘기해 주신 품목들은 이제 가격이 오르지 않은 1년 전에 비해서 가격이 오르지 않은 품목들이었습니다. 자, 이런 가공식품 영어로는 processed foods라고 하죠.
Processed food is, like I said, any food that's been changed, any raw material that's been changed from its natural state. If something's processed, it means it's been subject to a series of actions or operations or treatment, usually in the manufacturing process.
That's right. 가공식품 processed food 그런 식품들이라는 뜻으로 foods s 붙일 수도 있고요. And the price increase was led by cooking oil and sugar and things like that.
Yeah, if something's in the lead, it's in first or it's
Yeah.
at the head of a long list. So of these 25 items that rose, on the top of the list was cooking oil.
네, 여기서 lead, L-E-D는 lead의 과거 형태죠. lead, L-E-A-D가 원래 원형인데 이끌다, 주도한다라는 뜻이 있어서 led by A, 누군가가 이끈. 이 경우에는 식용유 값이 가장 많이 올랐으니까 그것이 이제 가격 상승 폭의 주된 요인이고
Right.
그 외에 또 많은 것들이 있다 이런 뜻이 되겠죠. Here's the headline again. Prices of processed foods in the first quarter rose by around 6% from a year earlier, led by cooking oil prices soaring nearly 50%.
The world's biggest election is set to kick off this week when nearly 1 billion voters will cast their ballots in India's mammoth national polls, considered the most consequential in decades with the potential to shape the country's future.
10억 명 가까운 유권자들이 투표에 나서 세계 최대 규모의 선거가 될 인도의 대규모 총선이 이번 주 시작됩니다. 이번 총선은 향후 인도의 미래를 결정지을 수도 있는 수십 년 만에 중요한 선거로 여겨집니다.
Yeah, so whenever there's an election in India, you hear this expression that India is the world's largest democracy. There's nearly 1 billion registered voters. They're eligible to vote. And that's more than the entire populations of the US, the European Union, and Russia combined. So it's just a massive effort to get a free and fair election out in India.
Yeah.
There are more than 1 million polling stations, Sue. So it's quite the task, I think, to pull this off. And India is a parliamentary system. So what the electorate will be doing is they'll be voting in 7 phases, beginning on April 19th through June 1st, and the final results will be unveiled on June 4th.
Ah, interesting. So it's going to take over a month.
A month and a half
A month and a
almost, in fact, to get a
half.
winner. Yeah.
그렇군요. 네, 유권자만 10억 명 정도고요. 그다음에 한 달 반 정도에 걸쳐서 이 선거를 하게 되는데 투표소는 이제 polling station이라고 합니다. 100만 개가 넘는다고 조금 전에 설명을 해주셨고 인도 총선 와 대단하네요. 자, 첫 번째 표현 보겠습니다. People in India will cast their ballots.
Yeah, to cast one's ballot, simply put, means to vote in an election. You know, to cast something, I think of fishing, you know, when you throw something forward, like
Right.
casting a fishing line. Or if you put forth something, like you cast a shadow on the ground is to cast, or a broadcast or internet live cast is when you transmit something. So there's that forward sort of image that's going
Yeah.
on. But in the case of casting one's ballot, you're putting forward your vote.
투표한다라는 뜻인데요. 캐스트라는 의미 자체가 뭔가 이렇게 앞으로 뭐 이렇게 내던진다 아니면 뭔가를 투표에 참여한다, 내 그림자가 앞에 드리워진다 이런 느낌이 다 있군요. 알겠습니다. 자, vote 또는 cast one's ballots. consequential은 어떤 뜻이죠?
Yeah, if something's consequential, it means it has significant importance. And usually there's a cause and effect sort of feeling here. It's the direct result of an action. We're saying these elections, every election, they say, is consequential. It's the most
Yeah,
important,
very
you know, vote in our lifetimes, they always say. But to be consequential means to have significant importance.
아주 중요한, 중대하다. consequential.
Like repercussions. There are
right.
big repercussions for this elections, meaning there's a widespread effect of an action or an event.
Absolutely. So let's remember those two words together. And here's the headline again. The world's biggest election is set to kick off this week when nearly 1 billion voters will cast their ballots in India's mammoth national polls, considered the most consequential in decades, with the potential to shape the country's future. Let's move on to the next headline.
Archaeologists excavating the doomed city of Pompeii have unearthed a banquet hall complete with paintings inspired by the Trojan War.
멸망한 고대 도시 폼페이의 유적을 발굴 중인 고고학자들이 트로이 전쟁 테마를 담은 벽화가 그려진 연회장을 발견했습니다. I thought they'd found everything there was to be found
No,
in
it
Pompeii.
seems like you know, there are new discoveries
Yeah.
occurring by the day, and I've seen pictures of this, and the pictures that were drawn on the walls of this banquet hall were very clear
Yes.
and very detailed.
And
in
so
fact.
colorful as well.
And it's hard to imagine that this was just, it was the year 79 BCE.
Wow.
So AD is when the eruption occurred. So we're talking millennia.
Thousands of years,
Millennia
not just hundreds.
ago, exactly, and
My
you know
goodness.
the preserved state of Pompeii. Of course, I don't need to mention this, but everything was preserved in a very considering that they're thousands of years old. You know, these to get a glimpse of life back in the day is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. 저도 그림을 보면서 이거 어제 그렸다고 해도 믿을 정도로 굉장히 선명하고 디테일드 되어 있는데 2000년 전에 그려진 벽화란 말이에요. 와, 정말 상태도 그대로 잘 보존이 된 것 같습니다. Of course, the story of Pompeii, we all know, the volcano
Right.
that erupted, Vesuvius. But excavation work continues, and that's what archaeologists have been doing.
Yeah, and they believe this new banquet hall, or newly discovered, I
Yeah,
should say, it's
yeah.
definitely not new, was likely used for refined entertaining. So they were probably having galas and, you know, dinner sort of gatherings, even thousands of years ago.
Yes, banquet라는 게 만찬이거든요. 그래서 banquet hall이라고 하면은 그런 만찬이 열리는 연회장이 되겠죠.
And these paintings, they're thought to be Helen of Troy, Apollo, and Cassandra, all dating back to Greek mythology.
그래요. 자, excavate something이라는 표현을 먼저 보도록 하겠습니다.
When you excavate something, you're digging something out, you're removing it, or even just exposing it to view, or to form by hollowing out is another definition of excavating. You can excavate a tunnel, for example.
그렇죠. 뭔가 파내는 거예요. 발굴하다라는 의미로 쓰기도 하는데 excavating. And if something is inspired by something?
Yeah, we were inspired by the stories earlier in the show. That's literally being inspired by. But if something's inspired by, in this case, it's to be brought out or to be incited by or motivated, impelled or influenced. So, for example, the performance was inspired by the playwright's youth, for example.
누구로부터 영감을 받은 be inspired by 누구누구 이렇게 할 수 있겠습니다. Here's the headline again. Archaeologists excavating the doomed city of Pompeii have unearthed a banquet hall complete with paintings inspired by the Trojan War. Now let's move on to the final headline.
Potential signs of the rainbow-like glory effect, which are colorful concentric rings of light that occur only under peculiar conditions, have been detected for the first time on a planet outside of the solar system.
특정 조건에서만 발생하는 무지갯빛의 동심원을 가리키는 일명 글로리 현상의 잠재적 징후가 태양계 밖 행성에서 처음으로 관측됐습니다.
Okay, so I'll be honest, I had to do a little bit of research for
right.
this story because I'm not a scientist, but I guess we should define what this glory effect is.
Yes.
What it is, it's an optical phenomenon that occurs in nature when light is shown at an exact moment in between the clouds through water droplets. So all of these things have to align, and it creates a sort of rainbow, but not the kind of arching rainbow that we're used to seeing.
It's a circle, isn't it?
It's a circle, concentric circles. So multiple circles all put together, and it forms a rainbow. So we see this in Earth, but the headline here is saying that this was discovered on a planet for the first time outside of our solar system.
저는 사실 이제 처음 봤을 때 약간 다트 보드 같다는
Yes.
느낌이 좀 들었어요.
Yeah.
원형인데 여기 그 안에 링이 여러 개가 있어요. 그래서 이게 사실은 이제 무지갯빛이고 완전한 원형의 무지개라고 생각을 하시면 되는데 저처럼 조금 직관적으로
Yeah.
다트할 때는 관역 같다 이렇게
That's all I
생각하실
see
수도 있을
too.
것 같아요.
Now I can't get that image out of my head now.
그런 이제 빛이 뭐 어떻게 반사가 돼서 행성에 이런 글로리 현상이 나타나는 경우가 그 전에는 지구나 금성에서는 발견이 된 적이 있지만 우리 태양계 밖에서 발견이 된 적은 이번이 이제 처음인 거죠.
Yeah, exactly. 637 light years away, this hot giant planet. It's actually double the size of Jupiter, which is, of course, the biggest planet in our solar system. So just the size is hard to fathom.
Yeah.
But scientists were able to see this effect happening in another galaxy. And so what the implications of this possibly is that maybe we have similar phenomenon happening in other parts of outer space.
Yeah, isn't it mind-blowing to think that we are just a tiny little part of something massive out there?
Even thinking of it like that is very human to think. I just think, it's impossible. We'll never know. I know there's this quest to maybe find evidence of life on other planets, but who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll probably never know. Or maybe we will.
자, 그러면 첫 번째 표현으로 rainbow like라고 했는데요.
Yeah.
무슨 like?
Yeah, when we have noun plus the suffix like, it means it's similar to something. So it resembles something or has similar characteristics.
그렇죠. 명사 뒤에다가 suffix라고 하면은 뒤에다 붙이는 거예요. prefix라고 하면 앞에다 붙이는 거고.
Right. 접두사, 접미사?
그렇죠.
Yeah.
역시
There we
선생님
go.
역시
아하.
네네
My memory
감사합니다.
is good.
그래서 이렇게 명사 뒤에다가 이 전미사 suffix를 붙이게 되면은 뭐뭐 같다, 뭐뭐 같은 이런 뜻이에요. 그래서 rainbow like glory effect 이 glory 현상이 무지개 같다 이런 뜻이 되겠고요. And peculiar circumstances.
Yeah, peculiar is a peculiar word because it has the meaning of being distinct or distinctive, but it could be appealingly sort of uncommon or odd or unusual too.
그렇죠. 아주 독특한, 특유의 뭐뭐뭐라는 뜻으로 peculiar라고 할 수 있어요. And you can use this for anything, really. In this case, we're talking about a peculiar conditions, 특정 조건. But you could say, there's this peculiar thing this person does.
Yeah.
어떤 행동이 있는데 아주 특이한 행동을 해. And there's a particular or a peculiar smell to this cafe, or
So it's not
peculiar.
always negative. It's not
Right.
always a negative connotation, but when you use it, that person is peculiar. It could sound a
It
little
could sound
negative.
negative.
They're odd or eccentric.
그럴 수 있죠.
But the definition is technically it's distinctive. It's
Yep.
just different.
그렇습니다. 독특하다, peculiar. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Potential signs of the rainbow-like glory effect, which are colorful concentric rings of light that occur only under peculiar conditions, have been detected for the first time on a planet outside of the solar system. Well, that's it for our headlines today with our newscaster Shane.
The country's exports in the information and communications technology sector posted double-digit growth for the third consecutive month in March, according to tentative government data.
정부가 발표한 잠정 집계에 따르면 지난 3월 국내 정보통신 산업 분야의 수출액이 3개월 연속 두 자릿수 증가를 기록했습니다. Give us the stats.
Well, we get this data from the Ministry of Science and ICT. They've said that ICT exports stood at $18.82 billion in March, and that's up by double digits, 19.4% from a year earlier.
Yep.
However, we have slowed. It's fallen below 20%. In January, we had 25.1% increase. In February, 29.1%. So we're dipping slightly here. But it does mean that we have strong exports when it comes to semiconductors or chips, displays, mobile phones, and computers. So very good news. And we're seeing more exports, more shipments to China and the US. To China, it's risen by 32.5%, and to the US by 22.8%, whereas exports to Japan have actually plunged 52.8% from the same period last year.
It depends on the destination then.
Exactly. So more to China, more to US, less to Japan.
중국과 미국으로는 더 많이 이제 ICT를 수출했고 일본으로는 좀 덜 그랬다 이런 얘기도 해주셨고요. ICT가 바로 이제 정보통신 산업이 되겠죠. Information and Communications Technology. 이 수출액이 작년 같은 기간 대비 올해 3월 달에 19% 정도 늘었다라고 했는데요. 이걸 이제 두 자릿수 증가라는 영어식 표현이 여기 나오고 있고요. 그다음에는 이제 특히 증가율이 좀 높았던 것들을 좀 보게 되면 반도체, 디스플레이, 휴대폰, 컴퓨터, 그 외에 또 주변 기기 이렇게 쭉 나열이 되고 있네요. 이걸 영어식으로 말한다면 the growth was led by these things.
Yes.
이렇게 얘기할 수 있습니다. 자, 아까 그 두 자릿수 증가 이거 한번 볼까요?
Yes, double-digit growth. Growth means increase, and double digits, we're not talking about fingers, which is one meaning for digit. We could talk about the number of digits on my hand, 5. But here, a digit is a number. So if you think of from 0 to 9, that would be 1 digit. From 10 to 99, that would be 2 digits. From 100 to 999, 3 digits, and so on. So double digits are going to be anywhere between 10 and 99.
네, 자, 두 자릿수는 두 자릿수라는 명사일 때는요, s 붙여서 double digits 이렇게 하는데요. 이 뒤에 명사가 하나 붙잖아요. 그러면 s가 빠집니다. 근데 이제 나이도 그렇고 예를 들자면은 10살, 그럼 10 years old이지만 10살짜리인 펭수 이런 말을 하고 싶으면 10 year old 펭수. s가 빠져야 돼요.
네.
뒤에 명사가 붙을 때는 요것만 주의해 주시면 됩니다. 그래서 double digit growth가 두 자릿수 증가 이런 의미가 되겠고요. double 대신에 뭐 two digit 해도 되고요.
Exactly, yes.
two figure 해도 되죠.
네.
double figure, two figure 대체 가능한 단어들이 되겠습니다. 그리고 이게 tentative data에 대한 의한 건데요. Tentative, what does that mean?
If something is tentative, it's not finalized. It's not definite. We've used the word preliminary on the show before to talk about preliminary data. It's the same thing here. It means we have a data set, but it is not completely confirmed.
It's not final, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It may be changed a little bit, but it's a rough number that we have to look at.
Sure. Tentative data, 잠정적인 데이터라는 뜻이고요. Preliminary 그러면 보통 우리가 예비 어떤 선거 결과라든지 할 때 나오는 표현이죠. 같이 알아두시면 되겠습니다. Here's the headline again. The country's exports in the information and communications technology sector posted double-digit growth for the third consecutive month in March, according to tentative government data. Let's move on to the next headline.
The Ministry of Finance has announced that the government will extend its tax cut on fuel consumption, which was set to end at the close of this month, by an additional 2 months amid growing tensions in the Middle East.
중동 지역 긴장이 고조됨에 따라 정부가 이달 말 종료를 앞둔 유류세 인하 조치를 2달 더 연장한다는 기획재정부 발표가 나왔습니다. So we're talking about here in Korea, of course,
Yes.
this tax cut on fuel, the oil tax cut, it's going to be extended.
It will. It's been 3 years now. It's been extended 8 times so far. A 25% discount on consumption of gasoline and a 37% discount on the consumption of diesel. Because we've had a rough time when it comes to oil prices in the past few years. First it was the pandemic, and now we have these tensions in the Middle East. We have, Iran and Israel now fighting, and, the incidents that have happened in the past few days. So we're seeing oil has been on a constant rise, and it's reached $89.87 per barrel this month, compared to $78.85 per barrel in January.
Yeah. So for anyone who drives and you have to go to the pump, the petrol station or the gas station, you'll know that, it's a big burden after several fill-ups. Just going once might not be a huge burden, but this little bit of tax cut extension, it's gonna help, I think, in the long run to lighten people's burdens.
Absolutely, not just consumers but also businesses. Korea is a big delivery country, and delivery trucks need petrol.
Of course, that's a good point. Okay, to extend something, what does that mean, Paul?
To make it longer, to push it further away from you, whether it be in time or in distance.
That's right. Time or distance, that's the key point here.
Yes.
시간이나 거리 이런 것들을 연장할 때 여기서는 기간을 연장한다는 뜻으로 extend라고 하고요. 혹시 여성분들 익스텐션 해보신 분들이 있으실지 모르겠어요. 내 머리가 좀 짧은데 이렇게 붙여가지고 길게 하는 거 가수분들도 가끔 하시고 그냥 일반 분들도 많이 하시는데 이 익스텐드랑 같은 어원이죠. 늘리는 거예요. 자, 그 다음에 growing tensions.
You want to know the answer to this?
I do.
You really want to know the answer to this?
Well, only if
Sue,
you're
are
willing
you
to tell
telling
me.
me that you want the answer to this?
Well, I mean, obviously
you want the
don't want to
answer.
tell me, but if you're going to tell me, then you may as well do it now.
Yeah, I will. Growing mean increasing, and tensions. Now, this could be tensions between people. In this case, we're talking about tensions between countries, meaning there is anger there, or there is frustrating, or there is literal fighting. People are throwing missiles at each other. That's what we're talking about. It could just be diplomatic tensions when two countries are arguing about something, or it could actually be military tensions where there is actual conflict.
Growing, 점점 고조되고 있는 tensions, 긴장감을 말하고 있습니다. 중동 지역의 그런 긴장 상황을 말하죠. Here's the headline again. The Ministry of Finance has announced that the government will extend its tax cut on fuel consumption, which was set to end at the close of this month, by an additional 2 months amid growing tensions in the Middle East.
The United Nations Security Council has convened an emergency meeting over Iran's attack on Israel, with diplomats urging restraint by all parties to prevent conflict in the region from escalating.
이란의 이스라엘 공격으로 유엔 안전보장이사회가 긴급 소집된 가운데 각국 대표들은 해당 지역에서의 더 이상의 확전을 막기 위해 모든 진영에 자제를 촉구했습니다. Tell us more.
Well, this was an emergency session called by Israel.
Yeah.
They called it because they described in a letter it was a direct attack launched by Iran of more than 200 UAVs, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles towards Israel in clear violation of international law. That said, directly beforehand, Israel had sent missiles to the Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria, where it killed 2 Iranian generals. So both sides have been increasing the tensions in the Middle East. The UN Secretary General, when speaking at the UN Security Council, said it is vital to avoid any action that could lead to major military confrontations on multiple fronts in the Middle East. Now is the time for maximum restraint. And I think the whole world is crossing their fingers and going, please, just calm things down.
그래요. 이렇게 유엔 안보리가 긴급 소집됐습니다. The UN Security Council. And it's, as you said, because of this attack from Israel's part on Israel. Iran's part on Israel.
Yes.
Yes. The first expression is to convene a meeting.
Yes, which means to organise it, to say, everybody, come on, let's meet up. Yeah. So to convene a meeting means you're getting everybody together. So the UN Security Council will convene emergency meetings when an issue like this arises.
Yeah, so remember the 2 words together, because they do often come together.
They
right?
do, yes.
Yeah. Convene a meeting, 회의를 소집하다라는 뜻입니다. 같이 알아두시는 게 훨씬 이 표현을 외우는데 도움이 될 거예요. 자, urge restraint.
If we're urging someone to do something, we're asking them, but not just saying, will you do it, please? We're asking them very strongly. Urging someone to do something is saying you really need to do this. And restraint, well, this is where you hold back. This is where you do less. And when it comes to conflict, this is when you don't attack.
Right.
We're urging restraint. We're saying not just to Iran, but to Israel, to everyone in the Middle East, please calm down. Please do not, attack each other.
I urge you to do something. 부디 이렇게 해주세요라고 촉구하는 거예요. Restraint는 자제해달라. 그러니까 자제를 촉구하는 것을 urging restraint라고 합니다. 다시 한번 제가 읽어보겠습니다. The United Nations Security Council has convened an emergency meeting over Iran's attack on Israel, with diplomats urging restraint by all parties to prevent conflict in the region from escalating. Now let's move on to the next headline.
In Japan, job quitting services that help people hand in their resignations on their behalf are reportedly gaining popularity among new employees.
일본에서 사직서를 대신 제출해주는 일명 퇴직 대행 서비스가 신입사원들 사이에서 인기를 얻고 있는 것으로 알려졌습니다. Now, this job quitting agent service has been around for some time, but these days they're gaining popularity among new employees.
Yeah, and I wasn't aware of this, but the owner of one of these companies says that when you try to quit in Japan, they guilt trip you. They basically try to make you feel ashamed or guilty if you've quit your job, after just a short time, less than 3 years or something like that.
Because hard work is something that people really value.
Yes.
Not just in Japan, but, in this case, especially so.
But it feels like it's very burdensome for employees who want to leave but feel like they're going to be under a lot of pressure not to. So they're now going to these companies. One of these companies charges about 200,000 won if you're a full-time or contract employee, or 110,000 won if you're a part-time employee, and they will basically go and sort it out for you, as it were. They've received more than 8,000 requests in just 2 years since they started the company in March 2022. And from the beginning of this year to just recently, 545 requests were made, 80 of which were from new employees, which means they've started the job and they've gone, this is not for me.
아, 그래요. 한 10만 원에서 20만 원 선으로 이제 파타이머냐 풀타이머냐에 따라 좀 다르긴 하는데 이 퇴직 대행 서비스를 이용하게 되면은 대신 사직서를 제출하고 어떻게 보면은 그 짧은 기간 동안에 그런 에이전트 역할을 해주니까 본인이 그런 불편함을 겪지 않아도 되는 것도 있고 그다음 굉장히 부담스럽나 봐요. 이 사직서 제출하는 것이. 그래서 이런 일들을 하긴 하는데 특히 신입사원들 사이에서 정말 많이들 예전에 비해서 이용을 한답니다. 뭘 제출하는 거를 영어로 뭐라고 하죠?
This is to hand in.
Hand in.
And hand in can just mean to give. So,
Yeah.
for example, a student will hand in their homework, an employee will hand in a report, but in this case, we're talking about handing in your notice, handing in your resignation, meaning you're saying, I quit.
네, hand 그리고 in이 같이 붙으면은요. 제출하다, 내 손에 있는 것을 누군가에게 주는 거죠. 그래서 제출하다가 되겠고 hand out, 그러면 배포하다, 배부하다 이런 뜻이에요. 그래서 내 손에 있는 걸 여러 사람에게 나눠줄 때 hand out라고 할 수 있겠고요. 여기서는 hand in your resignation, 사직서를 제출하는 걸 말합니다. But you're not doing it yourself. You're getting someone to do it on your behalf.
Yes, and if someone is doing something on your behalf, they are doing it for you.
Yeah.
For example, if you, my Korean is not perfect, and when it comes to things like banking
Yeah.
or contracts,
that's difficult.
I might ask my wife to read something for me on my behalf to check that she understands and that everything's okay.
It's not just you. Even
Okay.
fluent Korean speakers sometimes need help.
Yes, so someone's doing it on your behalf. A lawyer will do things on
Yeah.
your behalf, or a friend will do something on your behalf. If you're sick, for example, if Sue has to miss a show, then maybe I will host the show on her behalf, or Karen will host the show on her behalf.
Which you have done, and
I
Karen
have.
has done as well.
I'm very happy to host the show tomorrow on your behalf if you want.
I'm very well, thank you.
Next time.
But I am very grateful for those times you sat in for me. 자, 누구누구 대신 한다 on someone's behalf. B-E-H-A-L-F 이렇게 씁니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. In Japan, job quitting services that help people hand in their resignations on their behalf are reportedly gaining popularity among new employees. And here's our final headline.
Bayer Leverkusen have clinched their first ever Bundesliga title with 5 rounds to spare, ending Bayern Munich's dominance at the top of German football.
네. 독일 프로축구팀 바이어 레버쿠젠이 5경기를 남겨놓고 사상 첫 분데스리가 우승을 차지하면서 그동안 독일 축구 정상을 지켜온 바이에른 뮌헨의 독주 체제가 막을 내렸습니다. All right, give us the sports news.
This is interesting because the final whistle hasn't blown on
Yeah,
the season.
they
They've
still
still got
have
5
games to
matches.
spare, but they've won it.
Yeah, because what happened is after their victory on the weekend, they've got 79 points, Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Second place, Bayern Munich, and third place, Stuttgart, are both on 63 points. They both won on Saturday, but they can't catch up. It's going to be impossible for them to beat that score, that number of points by the end of the season. And so this means this is Leverkusen's first title win in the Bundesliga, the first in their club's history. And Bayern Munich, I think, are going to be pretty upset because they were champions every single year for the past 11 seasons.
Right,
They've been doing very, very well. The other amazing thing is that Bayer Leverkusen, they didn't lose any matches this season. And if they remain undefeated by the end of the season, they will be the first side in the history of German football in the Bundesliga to go a whole season without tasting defeat. This could be a record-breaking event for Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Leverkusen,
Yeah,
excuse me.
absolutely. I think Sonny will be proud because he used to be a part of this team as well. The first expression to look at here is to clinch a title, clinch victory.
Okay, now don't get this confused with romance.
Oh,
Because a
why?
clinch can be a hug. A clinch between two people.
Okay.
But here the meaning is to clinch something means to get it, to
Yeah.
grasp it, to win, to
Right.
be successful.
지금 보이는 라디오로 같이 들으시는 분들은 지금 선생님도 저도 손을 이렇게 꽉 움켜쥐는 거를 보셨을 것 같아요. 그래서 이렇게 이 단어를 연상을 시키게 되거든요. 보통 원어민들은 clinch 그럼 뭔가 꽉 이제 쥐게 되다.
네.
내 거야. 이 느낌이 좀 있어요. 그래서 clinch a title, clinch victory라고 하면은 우승은 이제 내 거. 이 느낌입니다. Bayer Leverkusen have clinched their first ever Bundesliga title. And that means Bayern Munich's dominance is no more.
Yes, and if you are dominant or if there is dominance, you are beating everybody else. You are the most important, the most powerful, the major player in whatever it may be. And this could be in business, in sport, in entertainment, whatever it is. You are the one controlling everything or beating everybody else.
우위에 있는 것을 dominance라고 합니다. 지배하고 있는 것도 dominance가 될 수 있는데요. 그동안의 1위 자리를 차지했던 바이에른 뮤니크는 이제 no longer at the top of the Bundesliga.
Yeah. So a different example would be every smartphone company is fighting for dominance in the market.
그렇죠. 거기서 뭐 어떤 통신사든지 간에 가장 큰 영향력이나 지배력을 가지려고 노력을 많이 하죠. 자, 그러면 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. Bayer Leverkusen have clinched their first ever Bundesliga title with 5 rounds to spare, ending Bayern Munich's dominance at the top of German football. That's it for the headlines.
An analysis has shown that employment disadvantages, primarily represented by career breaks experienced by women, account for about 40% of the reasons for the country's low birth rate.
여성의 경력 단절로 대표되는 고용상의 불이익이 국내 출산율 하락 원인의 약 40%를 차지한다는 분석이 나왔습니다. Tell us more.
Right, so this is according to a report by the state-run Korea Development Institute, or KDI, and it says that women without children had a 33% chance of experiencing a career gap as of 2014, while the percentage fell to 9% in 2023. And the study is saying that, in Korea, where the burden of childcare falls very disproportionately on women, they call this the child penalty, or an employment disadvantage that's represented by women who mostly have to take the break to take care of the children, and that is accounting for 40% of the decline in the nation's fertility rate. So the KDI report is showing that the number of women who are deferring or giving up on having children has increased, and the average career break possibility for women in their 30s has been on a steady decline, with the decline concentrated among those without children, as I mentioned in the figure there. So according to the KDI, women without children had a 33% chance of experiencing that career gap as of 2014, and that percentage fell to 9% in 2023. And childless women in their 30s, they could reduce their odds of career interruption by at least 14 percentage points as of 2023 if they gave up childbearing. So that's they say that that's a pretty big economical incentive for them to give up on having children. And it was slightly less for women who already had children.
Okay. Loads of different things to unpack there. First of all, as you said, the study was by the KDI. KDI는 한국개발연구원입니다. 그래서 2014년하고 2023년을 비교를 해본 건데요. 한 10년 정도의 텀이 있죠. 이렇게 보게 되면은 전반적으로 여성들이 이제 경력 단절을 경험하게 될 확률이 줄어들긴 했어요. 10년 사이에. 그런데 무자녀냐, 유자녀냐에 따라서 좀 다릅니다. 그러니까 아예 아이가 없는 여성과 아이가 있는 여성이 계속해서 경력 단절을 겪게 될 확률을 보게 되면 10년 전에 아이가 없었던 여성이 지금 경력 단절을 겪게 될 확률이 굉장히 많이 줄어들었다. 이걸 다르게 해석하면 아이를 안 낳는다는 얘기로 볼 수 있습니다.
Yeah.
더 많은 여성들이 아이를 낳지 않는다. 이렇게 해석할 수 있을 것 같고요. 그렇다면 왜 그러느냐? 아까 그 child penalty라고 했나요? What was the term used?
Yes, child
penalty. 네. 그러니까 이제 어떤 그 사회적인 분위기라든지 이제 아이를 낳으면은 경력이 단절이 될 것이다라고 하는 그런 압박감도 있고 여러 가지 이제 대책들이 없고 경제적으로 손실이 아무래도 클 것으로 예상이 되다 보니 그냥 아이를 안 낳는 그런 여성들이 많다라는 또 다른 형식의 연구 결과라고 볼 수 있을 것 같아요. Okay, so let's have a look at the first expression, which is a disadvantage.
Right. So a disadvantage is a condition or situation that causes problems, especially one that causes something or someone to be less successful than other things or people.
불이익, 이걸 disadvantage라고 할 수 있겠죠. 불리한 점이라고 볼 수도 있겠고요. The opposite would be an advantage. 자, 그 다음에는 be represented by something.
Right, so represented by, in this case, we're talking about it, or it's used when we're talking about examples of something. So when we're talking about specimens or examples, so in the sentence, we said that employment disadvantages are represented by career breaks experienced by women.
represented by 뭐뭐뭐 무엇으로 대표된다라는 얘긴데요. 그러니까 무언가를 이제 나타낸다라고도 볼 수 있을 것 같고 employment disadvantages로 꾸며주는 표현으로 represented by career breaks experienced by women이라고 했습니다. 이 career break라는 표현이요, 선생님. 사실은 그냥 일을 쉰다. 이런 의미도 있을 수 있기 때문에 외국에서는 career break라고 하면 휴직
Yeah.
이런 느낌 아니면 더 나아가서 안식년 뭐 이런 느낌도 있을 수 있는데
Yeah.
우리가 말하는 경력 단절은 많이 다르잖아요.
Yeah, it's a little bit more specific, I
Yeah.
think, because we're talking about the career break that specifically is towards women who have to go through a career break because of childbirth or child rearing.
Oftentimes it's involuntary,
Yeah.
you know, because the woman is either pregnant or has a child, they are forced to take a career break. 자, 그래요. 그래서 우리 말에 이제 똑 떨어지는 그 경력 단절이란 단어는 없어도 이제 대부분의 영어 기사에서는 우리나라의 career break, 이 경력 단절을 그렇게 표현을 하고 보통 이제 부연 설명을 좀 붙입니다. 여성에 대한 career break이다. 자, 다시 한번 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. An analysis has shown that employment disadvantages, primarily represented by career breaks experienced by women, account for about 40% of the reasons for the country's low birth rate. Let's move on.
The Korean currency depreciated to a 17-month low on Tuesday mid-trading, touching the 1,400 won mark against the dollar amid escalating geopolitical tension in the Middle East.
중동 지역 긴장이 고조되는 상황에서 화요일 장중 원달러 환율이 한때 1,400원 선에 도달하며 17개월 만에 최고치로 상승했습니다. 우리 이제 미국에서 아이들 공부시킨다든지
Yeah.
이러신 부모님들은 정말
It's concerning news.
네, 정말 힘듭니다.
Yeah.
그래서 계속 이렇게 원달러 환율이 한화의 약세로 이렇게 가다 보면은 너무너무 달러 보내기가 힘들어지는데요. 얘기 좀 해주시죠.
Right, so the local currency traded at 1,400 won against the greenback as of 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday. This is according to the Seoul Money Brokerage Service. That was up 16 won from the previous day's closing price. It's the weakest point since November of 2022 when the won reached 1,413.5 to the dollar mid-trading. And the won has been plunging to a streak of fresh year lows as of late with the ongoing armed conflict between Iran and Israel escalating steeply. The $1 exchange rate has surpassed the 1,400 won threshold only during 3 major financial crises so far. Back in 1997, of course, the Asian financial crisis, in 2008, and of course, as I mentioned before, in 2022.
아, 원달러 확률이 이 1,400원 선을 넘어선 게 지금까지 3번 있었군요.
Only 3 times, yeah.
97년, 2008년, 2022년. 자, 이렇게 한화의 가치가 떨어지는 것을 the depreciating one이라고 할 수 있을 텐데요.
Right.
What does depreciate mean?
Right, so if something depreciates, it means it diminishes in value over a period of time. So it means to cause something to lose value, especially over a period of time.
depreciation이라고 하면은 우리가 이제 감가상각이라고 하기도 하고요. 가치가 떨어지는 거죠. The Korean currency has depreciated against the dollar. 달러 대비 한국의 원화 가치가 떨어지는 걸 말하고요.
Right, and another word that we used for the dollar was greenback.
아하, exactly. greenback라는 거가 이제 달러를 말하는데
Yeah.
그냥 일상적으로는 뭐 buck라는 단어를 써서
Right.
how much is this? It's $5.
Yeah.
이렇게 하지만 뉴스에서는 dollar라는 단어 대신에 greenback 많이 씁니다.
Yeah.
escalating은 뭘까요?
Escalating. So escalating means increasing rapidly or to become more intense or serious.
그렇죠. 증가하는 것을 뭔가 특히 escalating violence라든지 이럴
Yeah.
때는 점점 심화되는 것을 말하는데요. 에스컬레이터 올라가는 거 생각하시면 될 것 같습니다.
Yes.
다시 읽어볼게요. The Korean currency depreciated to a 17-month low on Tuesday, mid-trading, touching the 1,401 mark against the dollar amid escalating geopolitical tension in the Middle East.
Tesla has decided to lay off more than 10% of its global workforce, according to an internal memo, as it grapples with falling sales and an intensifying price war for electric vehicles.
미국 전기차 업체 테슬라가 판매 부진과 업계 가격 경쟁의 심화로 전 세계 자사 인력의 10% 이상을 감축하기로 했다고 내부 문건을 통해 밝혔습니다. Tell us more.
Right. So Tesla CEO Elon Musk commented in a post on X saying every 5 years, we need to reorganize and streamline the company for the next phase of growth.
Right.
So two senior leaders have also announced their departures from the company. And Elon Musk last announced a round of job cuts back in 2022
Right.
after telling executives that he had a super bad feeling about the economy.
그래.
He's announced this job cut, but Tesla's headcount has actually gone up from about 100,000 in late 2021 to about 140,000 in late 2023, and this is according to filings with U.S. regulators. It's gone up, it's gone down. So we've been seeing a lot of difficulty in the EV market.
Yeah.
Tesla shares have tumbled. Shares of other EV makers have also tumbled as well. So he's saying that, they're preparing for the next phase. So it's
Right.
really important for them to look at, how to make cost reductions and increase productivity. And this is according to the memo
Right.
that was sent to all of his staff.
자, 여기서 job cut라는 표현도 나왔고요. 해고하는 것을 laying off라고 하기도 하죠.
Yeah. So it's sort of an informal expression to say you're letting someone go. So it's used when you are discharging a worker because of economic conditions or shortage of work. So it's an occasion when the company stops employing someone, sometimes temporarily, because the company does not have enough money or enough work.
Yeah. Another way of saying this more casually would be to fire somebody, to lay off, L-A-Y, and to grapple with something.
Right. To grapple with something means to try to deal with or solve or understand a difficult problem or situation.
That's right. 무엇에 대해 고심하거나 해결하려고 노력하는 모습을 to grapple with something이라고 합니다. 자, 다시 읽어볼게요. Tesla has decided to lay off more than 10% of its global workforce, according to an internal memo, as it grapples with falling sales and an intensifying price war for electric vehicles. Now let's move on to the next headline.
Global airlines have suspended or delayed flights after Iran's missile and drone attacks on Israel further narrowed options for planes navigating between Europe and Asia.
네, 이스라엘에 대한 이란의 미사일과 드론 공격 이후 유럽과 아시아를 오가는 비행기들의 항로 선택지가 더욱 좁아진 가운데 일부 글로벌 항공사들이 운항을 취소하거나 연기하는 사태가 빚어졌습니다. Just recently, the UN Security Council actually got together to deal with this issue of Iran firing towards Israel's consulate. And now we're seeing airlines also cutting back on their flights. Tell us more.
Right. So they say that flights between Europe and Asia could see significant delays and longer journey times. Of course, this follows the first direct attack from Iran on Israel on Saturday night. Immediately following the onslaught of drones and missiles, a number of Middle Eastern countries, including Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq, temporarily closed their airspaces, while Israel and Iran imposed restrictions on theirs. So many European and Asian airlines fly over the region on their way between a number of popular destinations and have expressed concerns that the necessary rerouting will prolong flight times and add to fuel costs.
So if there are people planning to travel for some reason or other to these areas, you'll have to check to see that the flight is still, it's still going as planned.
Yeah.
but the options are definitely narrower than before.
That's right. So in this case, when we talk about narrow, sometimes we talk about like the streets that are narrowing.
Yeah,
but when we're talking about narrowed options, it means something's more limited or more restricted in extent or scope.
That's right. 좁다라는 뜻입니다. narrow. narrowed options 그러면은 선택지가 줄어들었다라는 뜻인데요. 유럽과 아시아를 오고 가는 이 항공편의 선택지가 지금 이 이란의 이스라엘에 대한 attack 공격 때문에 선택지가 많이 줄어들었다라는 뜻이 되겠고 planes navigating between Europe and Asia.
Right. So, it could be talking about planes. It could be talking about ships, cars. So when we're talking about something sailing or traveling over a stretch of water or terrain, especially carefully or with difficulty, we say we are navigating through waters, navigating through terrain.
That's right. 우리 차에도 내비라고 하잖아요. 이거는 콩글리시이긴 합니다만 그게 이제 navigation device를 우리는 줄여서 그렇게 얘기하죠. 서양에서는 GPS라고 합니다. 그래서 아마 이제 미국 사람한테 Do you have a navi? 그러면은 이해 잘 못하거나 아니면은 저기 그 영화 뭐지? 그 영화 생각할 것 같아요. 나비족? 뭐더라? 아바타. 그러니까 나비는 이제 우리식인데 어쨌든 navigation에서 온 거고요. 길을 찾는다라는 의미로 navigate라고 할 수 있겠습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Global airlines have suspended or delayed flights after Iran's missile and drone attacks on Israel further narrowed options for planes navigating between Europe and Asia. And this is our final headline.
An American man who is on a quest to hold the most concurrent Guinness World Record titles has added a new record to his belt by balancing a running lawnmower on his chin for over 9 minutes.
기네스북 세계기록 최다 보유자를 목표로 하는 한 미국 남성이 작동 중인 잔디깎기 기계를 턱에 올려놓은 채 9분 넘게 버티며 이 부문 새 기록을 추가했습니다. 저는 사실 이 부문이 존재한다는 자체가 놀라웠는데.
There are all sorts of Guinness World Records.
알려주세요.
Right, so his name is David Rush, and like we mentioned, he is on a quest to hold the most concurrent Guinness World Record titles.
Right.
And he previously attempted this record about 4 years ago, but his time of 3 minutes and 52 seconds was disqualified because his lawnmower apparently didn't have a bag on it. So he's attempted it again.
Okay.
And the record was increased in between that time to 7 minutes and 2 seconds by another serial record breaker called his name was Ashrita Furman. But he finished his attempt finally at 9 minutes 17 seconds, which was a little bit short of his goal of 10 minutes, but enough to take over the title. And the record brought Rush's total concurrent titles to 165, bringing him closer to overtaking Silvio Saba, who currently holds 180 titles.
Oh my goodness. 현재 이제 165개의 그 기네스 기록을 보유하고 있는 이 미국 남성이요. 잔디깎기 기계가 어떻게 생겼는지 여러분 대충 아실까요?
It's big.
네, 이렇게 손잡이가 위에 이렇게 있고 그다음에 밑에 이제 기계가 있는데 이걸 거꾸로 세워서 손잡이 있는 쪽을 턱에다가 이렇게 올려놨더라고요. 근데 이제 움직이고
And it's
있잖아요.
running,
그러니까 이
yeah.
진동이 상당할 텐데.
It's crazy.
네, 이렇게 또 했다고 합니다. 참고로 말씀을 드리자면은 이 기네스 월드 레코드의 기네스가 여러분이 그 술이랑 관련이 있나? 관련이 있습니다. 네, 이
It's like Michelin.
네. 그래서 사실 이 기네스 그 맥주 제조하는 그 사장인가 최초에 그때 이제 친구들이랑 이제 맥주 한잔 마시면서 이런저런 얘기를 하다가 야 근데 뭐 그 뭔가 말도 안 되는 얘기를 한 거야. 이게 뭐 더 빠를까? 어쨌든 동물에 대한 얘기였어요.
Yeah.
제가 정확하게 기억은 안 나지만 잠시 후에 찾아보겠습니다. 흑맥주군요. 기네스가 네, 그냥 맥주 아니고. 그러면서 뭐 이 동물이 더 빠를까? 저 동물이 빠를까? 이런 얘기를 이제 막 술김에 하다가 아무도 정답을 모르는 거예요. 그래서 우리 그러면은 내기하자. 그래서 좀 이색적인
Yeah.
특이한 것에
Yeah.
대한 내기를 하기 시작하면서 상금도 붙이고 그래서 기네스 월드 레코드라는 것이 생겨났다고
Yeah,
합니다.
I think the most recent strange one that I heard was the boy with the biggest mouth gape. And he
그런 것도
said,
있어요?
yes, and he
입이
said,
가장 크게 벌려지는 사람.
yeah, and he could fit a grapefruit in his mouth.
자몽이 그냥 이렇게
In his mouth.
입에
It was the biggest gape. Yeah, so that was one of the stranger ones that I've seen. So there are all sorts of records.
알겠습니다. 현재 그 기네스북 기록 최다 보유자인 실비오 사바는 180개 기록이 있다고 하고요.
와우.
이 미국인 데이비드 러시도
He's on his way.
따라잡고 있습니다. On a quest to do something이 바로 그런 거죠.
Right. So if you're on a quest to do something, you are on a long or arduous search or mission to achieve something.
Right. 무엇을 하려고 하는, 도전을 하려고 하는 그런 상태일 때 I'm on a quest to do something이라고 하고요. Concurrent records.
Right. So concurrent means it's existing or happening or done at the same time.
아, 그러니까 동시에 so concurrent titles 기네스 그 기록들을 동시에 여러 개를 보유하고 싶어하는 이 분의 얘기군요. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. An American man who is on a quest to hold the most concurrent Guinness World Records titles has added a new record to his belt by balancing a running lawnmower on his chin for over 9 minutes.
This year's AI Index report, published by Stanford University's Human Centered AI Institute, shows that South Korea leads the world in AI patent applications, but is also experiencing an exodus of AI talent.
미국 스탠퍼드대 인간중심 AI 연구소가 발간한 AI 인덱스 2024 보고서에 따르면 한국이 AI 특허 출원에서 세계 선두를 달리고 있지만 동시에 관련 인재 유출도 겪고 있는 것으로 나타났습니다. Tell us more, Ray.
Well, this is quite interesting, and they did talk a lot about the AI talent pool.
Yeah.
So this means people who work in the industry, experts, or just even experienced workers. You can think about it that way, or even young people who don't have a ton of experience, but they're just like geniuses.
Yeah.
They're just proteges or
Right.
prodigies in AI, I guess I should say.
Sure.
So they mentioned how Korea does have a high concentration of AI professionals, yet the country has experienced a net outflow of these experts. And a lot of this is because of the higher salaries offered by American tech firms. And
see.
domestic local companies just can't compete.
It's a big talent drain because
It
of
is,
that.
right. And this is also something that has happened in India and Israel as well, countries that are putting a lot of money into AI. However, their best and brightest
and leaving the country.
Yeah, they end up getting lured away by the big bucks offered by the American firms.
I guess that's going to be something for the government to think about.
Yeah, it is one of these things. And also, though, like you can sort of connect the dots here because of all the money that the U.S. government is putting into AI. They are leaps and bounds ahead of every other country when it comes to investment. Last year, they put $67 billion into AI. No other country is even close. They're the clear front runner when it comes to this. Korea is ranked 9th.
Okay. 자, 지금 이제 AI에 관한 이 보고서에 여러 나라에 대한 분석이 나와 있는데요. 우리나라 같은 경우에는 AI 특허 출원은 정말 많이 하고 있습니다. 정말 많이 하는 정도가 아니고요. 여기서 조사된 나라 중에 비율로는 1위입니다. I understand that we are right at the top when it comes to patent applications. 그런데요. 문제는 이제 인재 유출 역시 지금 굉장히 빠른 속도로 진행이 되고 있다. 그러니까 AI 이런 인재, AI 관련된 일을 하시는 분들 이런 연구를 하신다든지 이런 많은 인재들이 나라를 떠나고 있다는 얘기죠. 자, 그러면 표현 보겠습니다. The first expression is patent application.
I say patent. So
Okay.
there's patent, patent. I guess you can say both.
Okay.
So it's a type of IP. It's a type of intellectual property.
Right, yeah.
And it's for inventions. Usually a patent lasts for 20 years in Korea and other countries. Usually it's 20 years.
Right.
And this is so inventors can put time and effort and money into inventing something so other people can't steal it.
Right. I always get confused with the intellectual property terms. You have patent.
Intellectual property.
Intellectual property,
Yep.
thank you. Patent, copyright,
Trademarks.
trademark. And they're all slightly different, as you said here.
Right.
Patent referring to inventions, as you said.
That's right.
이제 특허 출원, patent application, 발음은 patent라고도 할 수 있습니다. 자, 그 다음에 이제 탤런트가 많이 빠져나간다고 했는데 in Korea, when people say 탤런트, they think of celebrities.
Sure.
But we're talking about people who are talented in this field, right? In this case.
Well, yeah, and same like you're talking about actors who are talented.
Yeah.
But they mean people who are talented, people who are experienced, people who work in that field.
그쵸.
So we use it for any. You can use it at work in any business, but you also use it in any kind of show business. Like
yeah.
you yourself are considered talent on the
thank
show.
you. 네. 왜냐 사실 우리는 약간 국한적으로 연예인에 대해서 탤런트라고 얘기하는 경우가 좀 있는 것 같은데요. 영어에서 탤런트는 인재입니다. 그래서 연예인도 인재가 될 수 있고 이런 AI 분야의 인재가 있을 수 있고 이렇게 스포츠, 뭐 방송, 라디오, 레이 선생님 같은 탤런트, 인재가 있을 수도 있고
You can definitely use it for sports as well too, for
Definitely.
athletes. Yeah,
그럼요.
for
예,
sure.
어떤 분야든지 간에 아주 그 분야에서 두각을 나타내는 인재면은 다 talent라고 말을 할 수 있겠습니다. 자, 그래서 인재 유출, talent drain이라고 하기도 하고, an exodus of talent라고 하기도 하는데 이런 측면도 이번 보고서에 나왔다고 하네요.
Usually when we say exodus, we mean there's a lot of people leaving, not just one or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the headline again. This year's AI Index report, published by Stanford University's Human-Centered AI Institute, shows that South Korea leads the world in AI patent applications, but is also experiencing an exodus of AI talent. Let's move on to the second headline.
The International Monetary Fund has held steady the 2024 growth outlook for South Korea at 23% on the back of great resilience in major global economies.
세계 주요국 경제가 회복세를 보임에 따라 국제통화기금 IMF가 올해 우리나라 경제 성장률 전망치를 기존과 같은 2.3%로 유지했습니다. Okay, so let's have a look at this IMF report.
So this is quite good. At least they didn't change it. They didn't revise
Yeah,
it down. So they've
yeah.
kept it at 2.3%. This is the IMF we're talking about, of course. And that's a little bit better than what the OECD and the South Korean government are saying.
Right.
They're saying 2.2% growth. The Bank of Korea even lower. Their outlook is set at 2.1%.
아, 그렇군요. OECD에서는 2.2%로 전망하고 있고 또 이제 한국은행에서는 2.1%로 전망하고 있는 우리나라 경제 성장률 전망치를 이제 IMF에서는 2.3%로 내다보고 있는 겁니다.
The IMF pointed out Korea's improving exports. That was one of their big things, especially strong semiconductor sales. So that's
chips,
quite a big one. In March, exports advanced 3.1%. That was the sixth consecutive monthly gain. So again, Korea is an export-based economy. So when the IMF sees these numbers picking up, that really leads them to have a rosier outlook on the South Korean economy in general.
그렇죠. rosy outlook라는 것은 긍정적으로 전망을 한다라는 얘기가 되겠죠. 뭐 꼭 장밋빛이다 이렇게 해석을 할 필요는 없지만 그런 표현을 씁니다. 자, 그러면 이제 그 전망치가 그대로 유지가 된다라는 뜻으로 hold steady가 나왔어요.
Don't change. And even don't move. You can tell someone to hold steady. If you're,
Yeah.
I don't know, cutting their hair, or there's
yeah, that's a good
like
one.
I always think, someone has like a mosquito or a bug on them. Like you can say hold still.
And
Yeah, and then you hit it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. Or anything. You're like, okay, sometimes I get acupuncture at the
Yeah.
honey one.
Yeah.
And if you move, right, they'll tell you to
hold steady.
hold steady, hold still.
Yeah,
What do you say in
still.
Korean? Gumane?
가만히.
가만히.
가만히 계세요.
가만히, right,
가만히
right.
계세요. 네, 그렇죠. 아큐펑처, 침을 맞으러 가끔 한의원에 가시는군요. 그럴 때 움직이면 안 되죠. 그럴 때 hold steady 해야 됩니다. 가만히 있는다. 사람한테는 이렇게 해석을 할 수 있겠고 여기서는 전망치니까 전망치를 그대로 유지한다가 되겠고요. 그다음에 resilience라는 단어 볼까요?
That's your ability to recover quickly and your
Yeah.
ability to bounce back from some adversity. So with resilience, you're at a certain level, you end up going down. There's something, whether it's prices of a stock, for example, or
Yeah.
maybe a performance of a team isn't doing very well. But then things change and they bounce back and they recover. They get to that same level, or maybe they even exceed that previous level.
Exactly. It's one of my favorite words, actually.
Is it okay? You think
Yeah.
you're quite resilient?
I
Do you believe?
try to be.
Yes.
It's something I strive to be
We all do,
always.
right.
Yeah. resilience라는 것은요, 이 회복력이라는 의미입니다. 회복 탄성력이라고 하기도 하는 것 같은데 이게 넘어져도 오뚜기처럼 다시 일어나는 것. 그래서 인생에 있어서도 굉장히 중요한 덕목인 것 같은데 여기서는 이제 경제 얘기니까요. Korea's actually global economy's resilience. That's what.
Yeah, right. They're looking at other countries, just, especially the U.S. and China,
Yeah.
who are major customers of South Korean semiconductors.
그렇죠. 그래서 전 세계 경제가 지금 그래도 어느 정도 회복세를 보이고 있으니까 다시 일어서고 있으니까 the world is showing some resilience. 그래서 여러 가지 경제 성장률 전망치도 뭐 상향 조정하거나 그대로 두거나 그러는 것 같네요. 다시 읽어보겠습니다. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has held steady the 2024 growth outlook for South Korea at 2.3% on the back of great resilience in major global economies.
Heavy rains have hit the United Arab Emirates, flooding major highways and disrupting flights at Dubai International Airport, in what the government has described as the largest amount of rainfall in the past 75 years.
아랍에미레이트에 폭우가 쏟아져 주요 고속도로가 침수되고 두바이 국제공항의 항공편이 차질을 빚었습니다. 아랍에미레이트 정부는 이번 비가 75년 만의 폭우라고 밝혔습니다. About a year's worth of rain just poured down.
Right, exactly. At least in the UAE, at least one person was killed. A 70-year-old man was swept away in his car. I haven't been able to find any reports if there were more casualties in the UAE. There were at least 18 casualties in Oman. That's been reported because there was also heavy rains across Bahrain, Oman, and Saudi Arabia, and Qatar as well. Actually, so this was quite the UAE government, they described it as an exceptional climate event.
Yeah.
They said that more rain was expected. Apparently, lightning was seen flashing across the sky, and occasionally it even touched the tip of the Burj Khalifa,
Oh my
which is the
goodness.
world's tallest building.
Yeah,
There was also a lot of flooding, ankle-deep water in some of the major shopping centers. Maybe people who have been there, the Mall of the Emirates or Dubai Mall. I've never been there. Also, the Dubai Metro. At least one metro station was flooded. So, quite a scene
Yeah.
over there.
Oh, absolutely. 화요일부터 해서 지금 계속 폭우가 쏟아지고 있다고 하고요. 1년치의 비가 지금 요 며칠 사이에 계속 내리고 있습니다. 자, 그럼 첫 번째 표현을 좀 볼 텐데요. The first expression here is disrupting flights or traffic.
Something causes disruptions, it causes problems and delays. Even like we can say that teachers say that to kids. Don't cause disruptions, or you're disrupting the class.
Right.
He's a disruptive student. Were you ever called that when you were a kid? Were you disruptive?
Not really.
No, I don't think so.
Were you?
Yeah, a little bit.
네, 방해한다는 뜻입니다. Disruptive students 그러면은 수업에 방해가 되는 아이가 되겠고요. Disrupting flights 그러면은 이제 항공편에 차질을 빚었다라는 의미가 되겠죠. And something has been described. What does that
Described
mean?
as.
Described
I think
as.
that's kind of more the full
Okay.
phrase. You have to add in there.
Sure.
You have to add as in there. So when something is described as something, it's explained in that certain way.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll say, oh, she was described as a shy young girl, but then went on to become a famous actress or singer. People will say that a lot about famous people when they talk about them in the past.
Yeah, described as 뭐뭐뭐 무엇으로 어떻게 묘사되다라는 의미가 되겠습니다. So this rain is being described as the worst in 75 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, as we can see from the reports, it is just mind-blowing. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Heavy rains have hit the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, flooding major highways and disrupting flights at Dubai International Airport in what the government has described as the largest amount of rainfall in the past 75 years. Let's move on to the next headline.
British lawmakers have voted overwhelmingly to back government plans to introduce a landmark smoking ban that will make it illegal to sell tobacco products to anyone born after 2009.
2009년 이후 출생자의 담배 구입을 금지하는 영국 정부의 획기적인 금연 법안이 영국 하원에서 압도적인 지지로 1차 관문을 통과했습니다. And to make things clear here, it's from January 1st, 2009. So anyone born from that date onwards, this is going to apply to them.
It will, right. So this is the Tobacco and Vapes Bill. And it passed the House of Commons by a vote of 383 votes to 67. So we can see there overwhelmingly British lawmakers backed this. So under this bill, children turning 15 this year or younger will never be legally sold tobacco. Never.
Okay.
The legal age of sale that people in England, the legal age where people can buy cigarettes in England will be raised by 1 year every year until it is eventually illegal for the whole population. So it's if you're allowed to buy it now, you'll always be allowed to purchase tobacco products.
Right.
But eventually, no one will be allowed. That's the plan.
Interesting. 네, 2009년생부터 해당이 되는 거고요. 2009년 1월 1일생부터 영어식으로는 anyone born after 2009이라고 했는데 이게 딱 2009년이 되는 시점을 기준으로 영어에서 한다라고 보시면 되겠고 점차적으로 이렇게 해서 흡연 인구를 줄이고자 하는 목적이 있다고 할 수 있겠죠.
The bill also has some other measures in it. They really want to crack down on youth vaping.
Yeah.
Which is, you can see it everywhere, right? You can see it here too. It really is a thing. So this bill includes banning the sale of these cheap disposable vapes and also limiting their flavors to prevent children from wanting to try it and then eventually becoming addicted to nicotine because that's still what's in it.
Yeah, absolutely. 전자담배, vapes라고 하고요. 이게 지금 Tobacco and Vapes Bill 그런 법안입니다. Going towards a sort of, healthier direction, and this is the strictest, I think, one of the strictest tobacco laws to go through.
Yeah.
The parliament right
A
now.
lot of people smoke in England. It's gone down since the 70s, but what I read is like 13% of the population
Really?
smokes.
그래요. 그다음에 영국에서 House of Commons는 하원이고요. 이제 상원은 House of Lords라고 합니다. Okay, let's have a look at this. Overwhelmingly, it was voted for.
By a large margin, a great majority supported that.
네.
If you overwhelmingly support something, you really, really support it.
압도적으로 무언가를 할 때 overwhelmingly 뭐뭐뭐 한다라고 하면 되겠고요. And make something illegal.
That means it's now against the law, or it will be against the law. By law, you cannot do it. If you do that, you will be punished if you get caught.
네, 불법화하다라는 뜻이죠. We mentioned littering earlier on, and illegal littering could end up in you paying a fine.
Exactly. Yeah, if it's illegal, you're not going to go to jail for that crime, but you'll still have to pay a fine.
네, 그렇습니다. 불법으로 이제 쓰레기를 투기할 경우에는 벌금을 내게 되죠. 그래서 외국에서는 그런 표지판도 많이 있어요. Littering is illegal. The fine 뭐 얼마 dollars 이렇게 나와 있습니다. Okay, here's the headline again. British lawmakers have voted overwhelmingly to back government plans to introduce a landmark smoking ban that will make it illegal to sell tobacco products to anyone born after 2009. Now here's our final headline.
Denmark's historic old stock exchange building in the center of Copenhagen has been engulfed by fire, with the culture minister saying 400 years of Danish cultural heritage had gone up in flames.
덴마크 코펜하겐 중심부에 위치한 유서 깊은 옛 증권거래소 건물이 불길에 휩싸였습니다. 이에 대해 문화부 장관은 400년 된 덴마크 문화유산이 화재로 소실됐다고 밝혔습니다. Okay. So tell us about this.
Yeah, this is very
Unfortunate.
sad. Yeah, very unfortunate, right? Copenhagen's fire service said the blaze started around 7:30 a.m., so it happened very early in the morning. The police have said it's too early to say what caused the fire. Police said they would not be able to even enter the building for a few days. They were doing a lot of construction on it, so there was scaffolding outside of it. That made it hard to enter.
And there were a lot of historic paintings inside the building.
People were running out with it. People were running in and trying to save anything they could.
Yeah, absolutely. This is almost 400 years old. It was made in the 17th century, I believe.
It's really sad when this type of thing happens.
Yeah, 아유, 그렇습니다. Now, in this case, if the building is engulfed by fire,
Usually you see that engulfed in flames or engulfed by fire,
Yeah.
completely covered or surrounded by flames. It's on fire, it means.
engulfed는 완전히 휩싸였다는 뜻이고요. By fire 아니면 in flames 이렇게 붙여서 불길에 휩싸였다 이렇게 표현을 하면 되겠고요. Another fire-related term is to go up in flames.
Usually you see this usually people use it figuratively.
Yeah.
Like you have some plan, for example, you're going to go for a picnic and then you look outside and it's pouring with rain. Well, your plans just went up in flames. So you can use it that way. But in this case, it's literal and it means it just was burned.
네. 화재로 파괴가 되거나 불타오르다 이런 의미인데요. Go up in flames. 계획이 무산이 됐을 때도 쓸 수 있겠고요. 여기서처럼 진짜 불이 나서 그래서 건물이 이제 소실이 됐다라는 의미로 보실 수도 있겠습니다. Denmark's historic old stock exchange building in the center of Copenhagen has been engulfed by fire, with the culture minister saying 400 years of Danish cultural heritage had gone up in flames. Well, those are our headlines today.